All right, everyone. Welcome in to another live edition of the Patriots Beat Podcast here on the CLNS Media Network. A bit of a surprise show. We're planning on doing Tuesday. We're going to hit you with an early show on Tuesday, but
We used to call these emergency episodes.
yeah, it's a bit of an emergency, I guess. As Alex, you tweeted out, something came up, right? And
Yep.
Lamar said that he wants to play for the New England Patriots. And so we're going to get into all of it. But first, I want to talk about our friends at FanDuel, our new sponsors of the show, FanDuel.com/Boston. Go there and get $200 in bonus bets when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com/Boston. They are our new presenting sponsors on the show, and I want to give them a shout out. And if you want to get in on the action, Massachusetts is here, so go to FanDuel.com/Boston for $200 in bonus bets. So again, look, Alex, some news today. Lamar Jackson, quarterback. According to Robert Kraft, at the owners' meetings, he hears from Meek Mill. It's a game of telephone here. It really is. But
A little bit.
It's relatively concrete news, I guess. Lamar Jackson told Meek Mill, who told Robert Kraft, that he wants to play quarterback for the New England Patriots. And so this was, like I said, at the owners' meetings out in Arizona. Coach Belichick spoke this morning. Robert Kraft spoke this afternoon. Belichick spoke a little bit on it. He was asked about Lamar Jackson, and he basically said he doesn't talk about anyone who's not on his team. That was sort of his theme. But Robert Kraft brings it up in passing that Meek Mill texted him and said he wants to play for New England. He left it up to Bill Belichick. So I know I have my thoughts on where this thing should go and where it could go, but I want to give it up to you first.
So, okay, initial reaction, Mad Libs are awesome, right? This whole thing's a Mad Lib. Read that on the bottom of the screen. That's a Mad Lib.
Yep.
So I had a couple quick thoughts.
Yep.
First, let's start with this.
Okay.
So this wasn't like, maybe somebody has it recorded and it hasn't come out yet, but right now this is just off tweets. Yep. I would be very interested to hear in what way Robert Kraft said this. Was he joking around? Was he serious? Was it lighthearted? Like things like that. I'm not saying that people are lying that Robert said it. I definitely believe he said it. And I even believe that Meek Mill texted him. I'm just curious how he presented that information.
Right.
And then, because was he sort of just joking around? Like, oh, yeah, no, Meek Mill told me that, yeah, sure, Lamar wants to come here. And then that leads me to my other question, which is, so this can be interpreted one of two ways, really. Lamar Jackson wants to come play for the Patriots, as in he wants to be a Patriot. Like, this is where he wants to be. This is his number one stop. Or is it, yeah, if the Patriots give him what he wants contractually, then he would play here. Right? It could be one of two. Is it he's going to tell the Ravens, trade me to the Patriots. That's it. Just where I want to go. Is it going to be like Rodgers with the Jets? Or is it going to be, yeah, if they had the highest offer, I'd go there, and it's still a bidding war, but he hasn't like totally ruled out the Patriots, right? And we don't know. We don't know. There's no way to know. We'd have to go ask Lamar. We'd have to go ask Meek Mill. But those are my two initial reactions.
You can't get Meek on the show?
I'll try. I'll see what I can do. And then, so I guess the third question, which really sort of goes back to the first point, is how much does Robert really know? Does he just know this? Is there more? Because if you think a couple of steps ahead, let's say this, because not only did he say that Lamar wants to play here, the other big part of this was he said, according to, I think it was Karen Garrigan and Albert Breer were the two people that really put this out there, that's Bill's call.
Right.
Which makes it sound like, in terms from an ownership point of view, which is really the money, he's good with it.
Right.
If Bill comes to him and says, hey, I want Lamar and he wants this, high amount of dollars, that Robert's going to sign the check. So he's now put Bill in the corner, and he's also put Mac Jones in the corner.
I know.
Because he sits here and says, I'd prefer, I would take another quarterback. I shouldn't say prefer. He says, I would take another quarterback. And look, you hope Mac Jones understands, and everybody knows how big I am into Mac Jones.
Right.
And I think that it's going to become this, Mike, and I'll call this right now. And remember I said this. There's going to develop this really stupid narrative that it's Lamar Jack. Like, you're either sticking with Lamar Jack, you're either Team Lamar or Team Mac Jones. You can't be both. there is room to recognize Mac Jones is a young player who has room to grow and could be good and does not need to be shipped off. But at the same time, if you can get a former league MVP, why wouldn't you do that?
Right.
So you hope Mac Jones understands that. And by the way, we'll get into Bill's comments today. We're going right back to just pushing the kids' buttons as much as possible, right where we picked off last year.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be one or the other, but it now becomes this thing where if Lamar doesn't come here, Mac knows the owner was okay with replacing him. And now the coach is in this weird spotlight where it looks like he essentially turned down Lamar Jackson for Mac Jones. And I've said this before. I think Bill Belichick's future is tied to Mac Jones right now.
Right.
But let's, elevate that another step where you don't think if they suck, we're going to get, let's say they start 1-3. You don't think people are going to start saying, well, Robert made it sound like Bill could have had Lamar and he chose not to. And now they're 1-3, right? So Bill's in a tough spot. Mac's in a tough spot. Was Robert, maybe he was just joking and we're all taking it way too seriously. That's definitely possible. It's not like the internet to overreact to a stupid little comment, but it's interesting. It's all very interesting.
It is interesting. And, like you said, I guess maybe we could be looking too much into it. And Tamara Brown from Patriots.com did sort of say that it was in passing and it wasn't a direct question. But the things they do in this organization, most of them are calculated, right? And so for Robert Kraft to bring this up unprompted, there's a reason he did that, right? He knows that someone's going to take this story and run with it. And so I find it fascinating that he even had the wherewithal and the reasoning behind it to bring it up. Secondly, look, I get, and you're a Mac Jones guy, I'm a Mac Jones guy. I think that Mac Jones can succeed in the NFL as a quarterback. I really do think that with the right pieces around him, he could win a Super Bowl. Bill Belichick's one of the best coaches of all time. You put the right pieces around him with a coach. He has the cerebral capability. And, people talk about his arm strength. That's just inaccurate. He has a solid arm, all that good stuff. He can run an offense, and I think he could be a Super Bowl winning quarterback eventually. Having said that, the Dolphins just picked up Tua's option. He's not the best quarterback in the division, but he's not bad. The Jets are likely to bring in Aaron Rodgers, and the Bills have Josh Allen. You're the fourth best team in the division right now, even after the improvements you made this offseason. However, you can immediately catapult yourself into the conversation if you bring in a Lamar Jackson, who literally said, according to Meek Mill, according to Robert Kraft, that he wants to play for you. So at the end of the day, and I get what you're saying about, was it he wants to play here? This is the only place I want to go. Send me there. Or is it, if they want to pay up, I'd love to play there. Those are two different things, but they're still the same thing in my eyes because if someone's
either way,
willing,
he's attainable. But so I guess the difference is if you give Lamar an offer, is he going to take it and say, "Yep, where's my locker? What's my jersey number?" Or although I would think Juwan Bentley probably gives him 8 and they work out together. But does he sign and say, "Where's my locker?" Does he take that offer and go to a handful of other teams and say, "Can you top this?"
Right.
That's basically what the difference is.
That's true. But if I'm the Patriots, I at least explore it. I feel like you absolutely have to explore it now that it's out there that he would at least listen.
Or it could another way to put it. So he told this to Meek Mill. Did he say, "I want to play for the Patriots," or did he say, "I want to play for the Patriots, the Dolphins, the this team, that team, another team, the Rams, the this, the that, the Niners," right? Because those are two completely different things.
Right. I look at how this team's set up now, and you just brought in a second tight end, albeit they're not really blockers. You still need to add that blocking tight end, but you have a double tight system. You have a Bill O'Brien who has worked with a mobile quarterback before.
Well, I'll tell you this, Mike, on the tight ends, if they draft Lamar Jackson, somehow keep one top 100, or if they trade for Lamar Jackson, keep one top 100 pick, and that's Darnell Washington.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? That's your three. Remember when the Ravens would run the Mark Andrews, Hayden Hurst, and they had a third guy in there. I forget.
I can't remember who it was, but yeah.
Nick something.
Oh, anyway. No, it was the guy who also plays defense.
Pat Ricard?
Yeah, wasn't it Pat Ricard?
He played a little bit of fullback. There was somebody else there.
Yeah.
But Nick Boyle. Nick Boyle was his name. There was a third tight end. But regardless, right? You have three dominant tight ends. You have receivers in Juju, a possession receiver. You have a burner in Tyquan Thornton, maybe mirror a little Hollywood Brown type stuff that they ran in with Greg Roman in Baltimore. I mean, you'd be cooking right off the bat. You really would be. Bill O'Brien would probably be salivating to call plays and design an offense around Lamar Jackson. And again, Belichick is 70 now. Is he really trying to do this, rebuild-ish type thing? Half, we can compete, but not really. I mean, he said it today. Look at the last 25 years. You can see that we've competed, but this would really, catapult you to like you have to make the playoffs type team in the AFC.
Well,
I don't see how you don't explore it. There's no reason to not explore it. A guy who, franchise quarterbacks are so hard to find. You have to draft them and then you pay them. They're rarely traded. They're rarely on the market. There is one here that is on the market. If you want to pay him, he'll come, basically. You have to try and take advantage of it, in my opinion.
Well, to your point, it goes into something else Robert Kraft said that I want to talk about. He was asked about how he feels about Bill, and it was kind of like an indirect question about Bill's job security, and he sort of talked around it, and he went on for a little bit. Like, he stretched that answer out, but in the answer, he said, it's very important we make the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
That, to me, was telling.
Yeah.
And maybe that was the first Bills heard of that. I doubt it, but doesn't it feel like now Bill's seat's getting a little hot?
Yeah.
And like I know for years it's been fire Bill has always kind of been the insane crowd. It's looking a little more that way. You're going on 4 years without a playoff win here.
Look, I don't think they're going to straight up fire Bill Belichick.
No,
there might be some sort of changing of the guards type situation.
Right. You look at, I mean, he lost control over his own assistants, at least to an extent this offseason, right? If you're Bill Belichick, you need to make the playoffs this year. You just do.
Right.
Lamar's going to get you there. Mm-hmm. And people will go, oh, he's only won one playoff game and he hasn't been good in the postseason. Those are very fair, valid concerns. But he is going to get you there.
Right.
And right now, that's kind of what the focus needs to be. They can't, I said it before in a different context, they can't afford to have another bridge year. They can't. This is a win now year. It is, for all intents and purposes, year 3 of a first-round quarterback on a rookie deal. That is supposed to be a win now year. And look, maybe it's not with him, right? Obviously, if they go out and I think there's ways they can do it with him, with Mac.
Yeah.
But you let a guy like Brady walk. Okay, well, you better have a replacement. And the timeline around the league dictates that from when they let Brady go, from when a team moved on to a quarterback to when they got the new quarterback, this is the year that you should really be contenders. And if you don't think you can do it with Mac, you're probably going to have to do it elsewhere. Now, again, I think they can do it with Mac. But they can do it with Lamar, and it's right there for them.
It's right there for them, and you're giving yourself a better chance. We've said it, we're Mac guys, right? But I mean, Objectively speaking, Lamar Jackson is a better quarterback than Mac Jones. Like, that's not a hot take. That's not something that's, and I get the money's involved too. It's not apples to apples. There's a bunch of different situations, but if you're looking for your best chance to get back to the postseason, you're going to take Lamar Jackson over Mac Jones.
Yeah, this is it's what was I going to say? That's a good question. I just totally what were we saying? I just totally lost my train of thought.
Just that objectively speaking, Lamar Jackson's a better quarterback than Mac Jones. So like, I know that the contract's involved and that those aren't, it's not really apples to apples.
Look, there's holes right now, and I me and a lot of people want wide receiver, go get Mac Jones the real number 1. There's still going to be holes after you do that. And there's going to be holes with Lamar as well. This kind of goes back to that big take I had at the beginning of the winter, Mike. Do you remember this? Why is everybody so focused on finding a quarterback who can fill the holes instead of just filling in the holes for the quarterback you have? And I said the reason you have that take is because it's so much harder to find the quarterback that'll fill the holes than it is to actually fill them. We have a quarterback who actually can overcome some holes that's available. So if they really don't, like, as ridiculous as this sounds, and people are going to eye roll at me for this, but I'm sorry. If you don't want to pay the price it costs to get Jerry Jeudy, if you don't want to pay the price it costs to get DeAndre Hopkins, you don't want to pay the price it costs to get Brandon Cooks, well, then the only other option is to pay the price it costs to get Lamar Jackson if you want to seriously think about winning. And that's kind of where they're at. And I'll just pull this up in the chat right here. I just want to bring up one part of this. I know it's a long comment, but people do underrate Lamar as a passer. And people who have followed CLNS for a long time know I was not super hot on Lamar when he came out of college, specifically because I didn't love him as a passer. And when he was in that traditional drop step, Joe Flacco offense as a rookie, you saw it.
Right.
He has worked so hard at improving as a passer. Like, it's night and day from when it was a rookie. He's especially last year. I mean, before he got hurt, like whatever he did last offseason, it was just a major jump. It's not Tom Brady, like going out there and just pinpointing it 50 times a game, but like he is more than a good enough passer
100%.
to play at an MVP caliber with the other stuff he can do. It honestly, it caught me by surprise, kind of how just I think the biggest problem for him, he struggled to like replicate his motion. It's like a pitcher or a kicker or free throws, right? You can't deviate your motion. And when he came out, it was very erratic. Like last year, he just honed that thing in. So I would just encourage people, don't sleep on him as a passer. You don't need to do that. It's an old narrative.
I would agree. Same boat too. You know, when he came out and even early on, it was inconsistent. It was hit or miss, and you saw it in that first postseason, right? His first postseason, the year he won MVP, it was like they went down against Tennessee, and you couldn't really trust him as a strict pocket passer to come back from a ton of points. But that has certainly changed, and he has worked on it, and he has improved as a passer. And I think he would improve even more as a passer in an offseason and going into a year with a guy like Bill O'Brien, nothing against Greg Roman, he's a solid offensive coordinator, but I'd probably take O'Brien over him, and I think that they would, curate an offense around him, just like Roman did in Baltimore. So it's interesting. And today's timeline as a whole was it's funny how it all happened, right? Because you had Belichick talking really very non-committal to Mac Jones, right? It's saying how, nobody has earned a spot on the 2023 Patriots, not even the quarterback. He said that everyone's going to have the opportunity to play, and he wouldn't say. Essentially, he was asked point blank, is Mac Jones the starter? And he said he didn't really say anything. And so I know people look into that a lot, and I personally think that it's just Bill not feeding into, the media cycle and doesn't want to give an answer, because then he says that, and then they turn around and do sign Lamar or do whatever, right? And it's like he doesn't want to step on his toes. And then so he says nothing on Mac Jones. Asked about Lamar, he also says nothing. Then they go to Robert, and Robert is in on Mac. He's like, we screwed things up last year. This is all paraphrasing, but basically,
right,
we screwed things up. We wanted to make changes. We've made changes.
He said a lot of what we've said on this show. Robert Kraft might be a sneaky Patriots Beat fan. Hello, Robert.
I think so. Yeah, Hey, Rob, how you doing? He's I'm looking for someone's name in here. That's his burner. But anyway, so again, he's on the Mac Jones train, right? He says that, we've made changes and we think he can excel now. He's in here every day. He's a hard worker. He's Team Mac. All paraphrasing. But then he walks away and he drops this bomb, and it's like everything changes. And so I kind of feel for Mac Jones in this situation too. He's kind of been put in I don't want to, speak for him, but I would be put in a mental pretzel if I was him. What does this team think of me? Where do we go from here? Like, you look at him when we were just at Gillette last week for McCourty's thing, and he's there and he shows up and he is really the ultimate, I guess, Patriot. And then you come and you hear all this, crap talked about you. It's an interesting dynamic, and I wonder what he thinks about all this. But the whole roller coaster today was very interesting in general, the quarterback roller coaster.
Yeah, I mean, just on Bill's comments, something I talked about last year. Remember, like, why do you have to push the kid? I get they want to test him, but don't you at some point want things to be going well? Why does it have to be, can this kid handle the worst case scenario? Why not?
Right.
Maybe shot in the dark here. Don't put him in the worst case scenario and then see how it goes. I was hoping maybe with Matt Patricia gone and Joe Judge reassigned, things would change. Apparently not. Apparently it's still
like
Mac Jones while he's down.
Right.
But the Lamar thing's separate from that. Because
Right.
again, I think Kraft kind of is in the boat that I was saying before, where you can believe in Mac Jones all you want and still acknowledge Lamar Jackson as a better option.
Right.
It's the stuff from Bill, just rolling his eyes at every time Mac is mentioned. That's a little much for me. And look, he didn't say I don't read too much into it because he didn't say anything about anything today. He was really tight-lipped. Like his longest answers were he pushed back on some questions about the team's cash spending, which I actually thought he made some good points on that one. And he was asked about Dante Scarnecchia getting recognized by the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He gave a good answer to that, as he should have. Besides that, I mean, go back and look at the transcript. It's all one-liners. It's all one-liners. Like he was not engaged. He did not want to be there. Our colleague here at CLNS, Greg Bedard, starts asking a question. Bill sees that timer's up. Did you notice it at the end?
Yes, I did.
Nothing against Greg. He just happened to be in the wrong spot at the wrong
Hilarious.
time, right? And Bill just says, all right, we're done here. Gets up and leaves mid-question about special teams, too, of all things. Greg was getting ready to ask him about special teams. But
Greg was great today because Greg kept pushing him on the cap, right? And he was asking
it was Greg
questions.
And Curran. Greg and Tom Curran, I feel like we're driving the bus on that one. But
Tom said something like, we're having a great day today, and then Greg asked a question, and then Tom goes, and then Greg had to ruin it, and Bill starts.
That did happen. I forgot about that. Good. That did happen.
Yeah. The one thing that Belichick did, let's talk about Belichick's comments now. We touched on Lamar. Yeah. We'll integrate it in, but the one thing that I sort of dug into with Bill was his answer on John Jones, because they asked him about Jones and him coming back, and again, he was very tight-lipped today. He doesn't want to talk. I'm surprised he didn't have the orange juice in hand, but asked about John Jones, said that was a big one. He's been a great player for us for a long time in a lot of different roles, and he also mentioned that it'll help with the loss of Devin McCourty. So Jones played corner all last year, but Bill goes out of his way to mention that he's going to help in different roles this season, and that, again, it will help fill the McCourty hole. Makes me think that they're going to use him as a chess piece on the defense. That's a reason they brought him back. Use him at corner, use him at safety, and they're going to sort of maybe try this amoeba-type situation in the defensive backfield with all guys who can play on all different positions. So that's the one thing that I kind of I thought was, I guess, the most interesting thing Bill said was just that he does a lot of different things for us.
So I wonder on that, did he mean when he says he's going to fill in for Devin McCourty? I honestly interpreted that not positionally, but as a communicator. And we heard about Devin making all the calls back then. We know John Jones has done it, right?
He's been there before. He's been there for a long time. All that, yep.
Yeah, I interpreted that as communicator, not so much that Jonathan Jones is going to be back there playing free safety. But if he is, all right. So now Jalen Mills is playing free safety. Now Jonathan Jones is playing free safety. That need at corner is just becoming more and more exacerbated, right? Joey Porter, Devin Witherspoon. We didn't get to have that debate on the mock last week, unfortunately. Is it trade down Deonte Banks, Julius Brents, whatever like that? You're not losing corners, right? But you're losing corners if you're moving all these guys to safety. So, yeah, I interpret it. I still think John Jones is going to play corner. Most they'll mix him in everywhere, but I interpreted that as more communication. But if he's going to be a safety and Jalen Mills is going to be safety, well, now it's not just you're short at corner in terms of height. Like you don't have the bodies,
right?
So that's interesting.
Yeah. We'll get back to Bill. We'll talk about some Jerry Jeudy news in a second as far as the Patriots go too, but I do want to quickly shout out our friends at FanDuel because Massachusetts, it's time to listen up. The wait is over. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, is now live in the state of Massachusetts. New customers in Mass can get in on the action now with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. All you have to do is sign up at FanDuel.com/Boston, and you can bet on all your favorite sports from the money line, the point spread, player props, all that stuff. The best app in the game, so easy. They give you boosts, they give you super boosts. You can, local guys bet on Celtics, Bruins, whatever you want to do. It's super easy. The app makes a ton of sense. It'll bring you up to like Boston sports right away, which I find cool. You don't have to go into NBA and Celtics, all that. There's a Boston sports page right on the front. So again, super easy app. It's safe and super secure. So don't miss your chance to get $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com/Boston and make every moment more on America's #1 sportsbook. 21 plus and present in Mass. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem, hope is here. Gambling helpline ma.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. All right, let's get back into it because what other thoughts did you have about what Bill had to say today? I mean, he said a lot. I had 5 takeaways that I kind of did, and I wrote it up on clnsmedia.com so you can check it out. That's for the audience. I'm sure you either read it, but I'm not talking to you, Alex. I'm talking to the fans. Go to clns.com. But I mean, not non-committal on Mac. John Jones could be a chess piece. The other interesting one I want to get your thoughts on it was he was asked by Mike Reese about a message to the fans, right? And he says, we got a long way to go. It's still March. We play in September. There's a lot of work to do. And then Mike asked why why fans should be optimistic, and he basically said, well, look at the last 25 years. A good answer, I suppose, because your resume speaks for itself. You've done all this, these great things for, this community, this franchise, this area. But he also was asked about other things, right? What did you think of Mac Jones last year? And he says, well, we're not looking at the past. We have to look ahead to 2023. Don't ask me about the past. There's no need to look in the past. Let's look forward. And then when he's asked about why we should be optimistic, well, let's look in the past and let's look at what we've done. So it's a little bit hypocritical, I suppose. It directly contradicts what he says about the other stuff. But what do you think of those comments?
And Ben Watson, by the way, just replied to one of those tweets about the 25-year comment. Said, coach told us daily the past didn't matter.
Wow.
It was annoying.
Ben Watson. I mean,
he went scoreboard, right? He said scoreboard. And look, it's a weird question. It's tough to answer that in the position he's in, but there was a better way to answer it. I don't know off the top of my head what it would have been. I would have probably said we've got a lot to be excited about and left it at that. We know he's also fine just sitting there and not answering a question until somebody else asks one.
Right.
But he did it twice. So everybody's focused on that the last 25 years. And that's obviously a much bigger example. Yeah, there's Ben Watson. Obviously it's a much bigger example when he says, look at the last 25 years. But when he was asked about Cam Accord, and he was asked, I'm paraphrasing here, but after last year, why do you think Cam Accord is the right coach to lead the special teams? And his answer, so he started off and he said, everything was bad last year. It wasn't just special teams. And then he got pressed on a little bit and he said, well, look, we had the best special teams unit in 2020, which was Cam Accord's first year. We had the best special teams unit in 2020. Okay, you did.
Right.
But that was 2 years ago. And football is what have you done for me lately sport.
Yep. So
it does feel a little bit like he's maybe resting on his laurels here.
Yeah.
That's what Felger and Maz say to the people who call in and it tried to defend Bill Belichick look at the last 25 years, right?
Right. And he actually did it.
And it's kind of funny to go off to line it up with Kraft's comment. When Kraft gets asked, how do you feel about Bill maybe breaking Shula's record? How important is that? And Kraft says, well, it's very important we make the playoffs.
Right. And we want to win.
Right.
Yeah.
And when Bill's asked to look forward, he says, look at the last 25 years. So that was a head scratcher to me.
Yep.
My other big takeaways, I have something up as well, by the way, on 98.5thesportshub.com on all of this.
Yep.
I thought it was interesting that he, when talking about Mike Gesicki, said, hopefully we'll use him correctly. Because as we've talked about with Jonnu Smith, right?
Right.
Wasn't a perfect player by any means, but it does feel like there was a usage issue there.
Yeah.
And then another interesting comment, obviously Matt Patricia was asked if Matt Patricia worked for the Patriots next year. He said, I don't know. That's probably a no.
Yeah.
He's not going to come out definitively and say no because he never rules anything out. That's not what he does.
Mm-hmm.
But, man, if there's ever a time to say no.
I know.
Especially because, and I don't know, we haven't been on since the Joe Judge, right?
Yeah, I don't think we
That was Friday, I believe, right?
Yep.
So, it kind of that was another one where is it the worst thing in the world? No. And having Joe, that was on Thursday. We did talk about that. I did do this. But if Judge is going to be here, he's now in the best spot for him, which is overseeing special teams. But why does he have to be here? This guy clearly caused such an issue last year. And I feel like it's the same thing with Patricia. So you'll shoot down Mac Jones as the starting quarterback, but leave the door even just a little bit.
Right, it's a jar.
A little bit. Leave the door open for Matt Patricia. So that was another one that stood out to me.
Yeah. I don't. Where does he fit? I mean, because it comes out right as judge. He's going to fill the assistant head coach / advisor role, and in Albert
you can have however many advisors as you want.
Well, but in Breer's report, he basically said that he is going to, he's going to take on the personnel elements that Patricia did in 2020. And so
people do that.
You're not going to fill him on offense.
They've had 2 people call defense. They've had 2 people call defense for the last 5 years.
Yeah, that's fair. But I like you said, that would have been the perfect time to be like, no, we're gonna move. He's never gonna say that. He's never gonna say we're moving on from that. So
he could have said I don't know, or he could have said something besides I don't know. Right?
He said not sure. Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he said. He said not sure.
Not sure.
That makes it, honestly, to me, that makes it sound like it's up to Patricia.
Yeah,
which would be interesting because
we
haven't heard anything. He interviewed.
He was at the owners' meetings last year, wasn't he?
Patricia
with Bill, I think he was out there with him last year.
Sounds right.
Yeah,
but like he interviewed for those jobs in Denver, and he didn't get them, and it sounded like they still might hire him. And then we haven't heard anything. So is he still interviewing? Is he in Denver? Like we don't know. He was
in Foxborough last week. Yep.
So he was at Devin McCourty's retirement press conference. I honestly don't look a ton into that because he was the safeties coach the year Devin switched positions. He was the defensive coordinator for a while. Like they have a very close relationship. That's a guy who's been very important to Devin McCourty, and
he made an effort to shout him out during his speech and everything too.
Right. I think even if he'd gotten hired by the Broncos, he still would have been there. Like I think that is a different thing.
Yeah. I had one more take on, or one more thing on Bill, and then we can get to a little Jerry Jeudy action. If I can jog my memory. The other thing, I guess, and it sort of ties into Lamar, but he doesn't want to talk about anyone that as of right now is not supposed to be wearing blue, red, and white on Sundays in
right.
Jake Bailey, he's asked about him. He said Jake's comments are Jake's comments. He's asked about interest in Odell Beckham. He says, I'm not going to talk about anyone that's not on this team, period. He's asked about Lamar. He says the same thing. I'm not going to talk about anyone on any other team.
He didn't even really talk about Jacoby. He kind of shut that one down.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right. Ben Volen asked him, or no, I think it was Karn. Sorry, asked about
somebody said like, "What do you lose in Jacoby Myers?" And he just kind of sat there until somebody else asked the question.
Yeah, and it was like he asked about the switch too. He basically said another like what Karn asked at one point was, "Why did you feel it was right to switch out Jacoby Myers for Juju Smith-Schuster and basically trade him?" And all he said was, "That's not how it worked. Free agency is different. It wasn't a trade." Right. But yeah, he was really, he was tight-lipped about most things today, as we sort of expected him to be. So that's that. I guess we can round this out, Alex, with some Jerry Jeudy talk from yesterday, and then maybe take some questions if we have some time. So if you guys want us to get to questions, just drop them in the chat, and we'll talk about Jerry Jeudy first, and then get to some of those before we get out of here. So Sean Payton yesterday, comment comes out that Sean Payton said the Broncos are not trading Courtland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy. Mike Kliss from Denver comes out and says, basically the same thing, that, he had this last week and that it would probably take a first-round pick in order to actually pry one of them away.
So there was a first report there Sunday morning that, and this is from Jeff Legwold of ESPN, quote, if the Broncos do not reduce their asking price for Jeudy, personnel executives believe it's more likely he now would be dealt closer to the draft.
Right.
And then after that, you had Sean Payton come out and say, we're not trading those two. And then you had the report from Mike Kliss say they're not trading them because nobody met their price.
Right.
And that, to me, is the key element there. Because, and I know I'm not like the first to make this comparison, but I wrote this all out on 853sportshub.com. On February 27th, 2019, then New York Giants general manager Dave Gettleman said for the second time that week We're not trading Odell Beckham. We didn't sign him to trade him. 2 weeks later, Odell Beckham was traded to the Cleveland Browns. On March 27, 2022, Titans GM John Robinson.
Yep. This is the comparison for me.
The Titans weren't going to trade A.J. Brown. A couple weeks later, Diana Rossini reported the Tennessee Titans are not shopping or taking calls on wide receiver A.J. Brown. On April 7th, Mike Vrabel says on a potential trade, not as long as I'm the coach.
Right.
On April 28th, A.J. Brown is traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. This, to me, is the Broncos saying, come on, guys, you got to give us a little more.
Right.
Let's go. Up the offers. And where it differs is I do think they will hold on to Jeudy. They don't have to trade him. This is not to open salary cap. This is, to this point, not a disgruntled player. We haven't heard that. Now, maybe he's sitting there thinking, you're trying to trade me. Just at that point, trade me. I don't want to play here anymore. And if that became public, if it comes out and we find out he no longer wants to play for the Broncos, that changes everything.
Yep.
But as it stands right now, you want to trade 14 for Jeudy or no? That's pretty much where it's at. And to me, there's two ways to answer that question. If the Patriots have a plan for the 14th overall pick that does not involve a wide receiver, then you don't make the trade. Then you don't make the trade and you try to get back in on Hopkins and this is obviously assuming Lamar doesn't come here. You either try to get back in on Hopkins or see if somebody else has become available, or you take your shot in the second or third round, guys like Marvin Mims, Tyler Scott, guys like that, and you try to piece it all together. The other possibility is the Patriots do want to use that 14th pick on a receiver. Mm-hmm. In which case, assuming they believe Jerry Jeudy is a better player than any of the receivers on the board, which they should, Jerry Jeudy would be the best receiver in this class. And by the way, age is not a factor. He is 14 months older than Jordan Addison.
That's wild. Yeah, he's only 23.
Yeah, and he's got like a year. He's got like, I think it's a little under 2 years Zay Flowers. He's got 16 months on Zay Flowers. He's got a little under 2 years on JSN. Those are the two guys I looked up.
Gotcha.
So age's not thing here. The upside's still there. If you believe Jerry Jeudy's a better player, use the asset on the better player.
Right.
If you believe Jerry Jeudy is better than Zay Flowers in 2023, it's Jerry Jeudy. Yep. Which, by the way, I think he is. Mm-hmm. If you believe Jerry Jeudy is better than Jackson Smith and Jigba in 2023, then you trade the pick for Jerry Jeudy. And people are going to come back at me and say, well, no, because it's about the contract. You get 4 or 5 years of team control on a young player. One, that's only good if the player pans out. And we know what their track record is at wide receiver. The other thing I would say is Jeudy doesn't become this albatross of a contract the second you pay him. He's still on the
extension, right?
Right. He's on the last year of his rookie deal, which is, I think, like $4 or $5 million. It's insanely reasonable. Mm-hmm. And then the 5th-year option, I think, is like 14 or 15 million, which is not insignificant, but for what top-end receivers go for, it's not a lot. The extension doesn't kick in, assuming you pick up the 5th-year option, which I'm pretty sure the Patriots would do. The 5th-year option doesn't kick in until 2025. And at that point, Mike, how many times do teams sign a big contract? We all sit there and go, oh my God, this money's insane. And then like 3 years later, it's a team-friendly deal because of inflation around the league, right? Yep. So you sign the contract now. Maybe he's like pull a number out of my ass, 8th or 9th highest paid receiver in the league.
Yep.
By the time that extension kicks in, he's going to be like the 15th highest paid receiver in football. So the whole rookie contract thing, I don't care. Win now year. He's going to be affordable this year.
That's the point I would make is, go ahead.
Right.
Yep.
So just to close that out.
Sure.
If they believe JSN, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, whoever it is, if they believe any of those three players are better than Jerry Jeudy right now, then you keep 14 and you make the pick. I don't think they'll believe that.
Right.
If you're going to take a wide receiver with 14, just take Jerry Jeudy. Just take Jerry Jeudy.
Right. And, like building off of that and what you said about, the contract and, looking towards the future and, you would have, team control of a JSN where you don't have that on Jeudy. do they really have the luxury right now? Because Robert just said it's important that we make the playoffs this year. Jerry
Right.
Jeudy allows you to make the playoffs this year, and then you can extend him, and it's still worth it. He's like, it's not the age, you're right, it's not a factor. And you go get a guy who's better now, can help you win now, and then you go sign him to an extension, and you pair him with a Mac Jones, a, dare I say, yeah, Lamar Jackson. It's a whole different story because you probably
No,
have to give up 14 in that situation.
you're going to have to give up 14. You can't get
but
Lamar. I that would be spectacular if they somehow
that was one of the
Lamar
questions
Jackson,
in
Jerry Jeudy.
yeah, that was a question in the chat, if you could get to both.
Don't believe that would be possible. I don't know how they would do that. Unless, down the road, you could sign Jerry Jeudy as a free agent. That would be how you do it. But
yeah. But again, assuming that Mac's your guy in this situation, you go pair him with Jeudy this year. It allows you to win now, and it also makes sense for your future. You got to pay good players in the league. Like, I hate the narrative, well, the Patriots don't pay, and that's not how they do things. Like, you have to pay good players. It's a good thing to have to, pay a quarterback. It's a good thing to have to pay a wide receiver because they're quality players who will bring to you, bring quality play to your team. I guess that's the best way to put it, right? So yeah, I think Jeudy makes sense at 14 if that's the way they want to go. So I guess we'll see what happens, but that's the report there on Jeudy. Let's get to a few of your questions, then we got to kick it. We got to cut this one a little early, but
I want to pull this up right away here.
Yeah.
So somebody said, we are fools if we don't see the potential in JSN or Zay. Unreal. Those aren't developing wideouts like Harry or Thornton. Watch and see next year's results on both. I'm curious what this person bases this off of, because if it's purely on draft position, JS, go, and I've done this before. You put him in last year's class, JSN's probably going about where N'Keal Harry went in the draft, and Zay's going about where Tyquan Thornton went.
Right.
You can't go off of, well, this guy's a projected top 15 receiver, so that means he's good. Can't do it this year because it's different. It's a different class. It's different players. The top receiver in this class is the 4th or 5th receiver off the board last year. 25 picks later. Very different conversation. Not saying that JSN or Zay aren't good, but how many 2nd and 3rd round receivers, 4th round receivers have we seen pan out the last couple of years because the wide receiver class have been so deep? Those years were so extraordinary. Like, this is a massive back to reality year for wide receivers. You need to kind of change your mind. You can't look at it in that same context like we have the last couple of years.
Right. So this is an interesting one. Do we think Lamar will be traded before the draft or after? What do I think? I'm just going to guess and say before. It sounds like, he requested the trade. He made it publicly today. He wants to get a move on things, get in a new situation, what have you. Not that he holds all the cards, but I think it'll happen before the draft. Having said that, a team, like we've talked about it on the show, a team like the San Francisco 49ers, who don't have a first-round pick, or a team like the Miami Dolphins, who don't have a first-round pick this year, significantly benefit if this happens after the draft. Because depending on how Lamar wants to do it and whether he wants to sign his contract and then be traded on the franchise tag, or if he wants to sign long-term and then be traded, or then have the trade go through with the 2 first-round picks, Miami can then make the trade with next year's first-round pick. San Fran can make the trade with next year's first-round pick. So I think it'll happen before, but a team in Miami who, they did just pick up Tua's 5th-year option, but that doesn't really matter at the end of the day. You can get out of that, and you can, not that you can get out of it, but you can make it work if you can get a guy like Lamar Jackson in. So teams would benefit from it happening after, but I think it probably happens before.
Yeah, I think it happens before. It makes more sense for the Ravens. It makes more sense for the team acquiring Lamar Jackson. It makes more sense for Lamar.
Yeah.
Report date's April 17th, Mike. Like, that's when, at least for the Patriots, around that for the rest of the league. That's before the draft. No, this thing's going to get done in the next couple of weeks here, wherever it is, whether it's New England or not. This thing's going to get done in the next couple of weeks. If it doesn't, now you start talking about, because now the value's lower, because just using the Patriots as an example, if you're the Ravens, you're trading Lamar to the Patriots, you're getting the 14th pick. If it happens after the draft, well, now you're getting a pick that you don't know that's probably lower.
Right.
In a
because
draft class.
Yep.
Right. In a draft class that you are much less familiar with. So now the asking price goes up. Now maybe it goes, all right, so to get, again, hypothetical, to get Lamar right now, this year's first, next year's first.
Yeah.
I think if you wait until after the draft, it becomes 3 first-round picks, right? Because there's so much more unsurety in what you're doing. So it's going to have me, like, if it goes till after the draft, now you're talking about, well, does he hold out? Does he sit out? Because teams are going to be less inclined to get a deal done. And yeah, it's got to be before the draft.
Yeah. I guess let's stick to Lamar here, because that's sort of the topic of discussion today. And if we do get Lamar, how do we pair wide receivers and tight ends next year? Again, so the 2 tight ends you're working with right now in Henry and Gesicki are not here next year. So you're going to have to re-sign or repay there. You'll probably end up drafting. We talked about Darnell Washington, but I guess what do you think on this one?
Yeah, that would be very interesting. Yeah. How do you go about that? Now, they would have cap space next year because the cap will increase, and I'm sure they'll do some maneuvering where Lamar would get, well, actually, no, he wouldn't have any salary to convert to signing bonus to convert to salary if it's fully guaranteed.
Right.
I think you probably find yourself in a spot like the Broncos are in right now. You look at guys who would be on expiring contracts. So that would be the class of 2021. So you start looking at guys like Ramondre Stevenson. Who else was in that class? You look at a guy like Christian Barmore, and you try to trade those guys for top 100 picks.
Right.
Because you're not going to sign them anyway. That would probably be what they would do.
Yeah. I guess, well, wouldn't the Ravens want to trade Lamar to an NFC team? I mean, do they really? I guess they do have the luxury because they do control it at the end of the day. But at this point, so this is what sort of how I think about it, because teams have the ability right now to offer Lamar Jackson a contract, and they haven't really done that yet. So now all of a sudden he wants to be traded, and teams are going to come chomping at the bit. Like, that's what I don't really understand.
I think he was going to get traded either way.
Right.
Honestly, I think what would have happened is if the Ravens found out he was going to sign an offer sheet, they would have matched and then traded. Yeah. So, or had him or traded him on because they can still trade him on the tender too. He just has to sign it. But as for like how much control do the Ravens have in this? Wouldn't they rather trade him to an NFC team? It goes back to something we talked about much earlier in the show, Mike. Does Lamar want to play for the Patriots, period? Or are the Patriots one of the team Lamar Jackson wants to play for, right? If he gives the Ravens a list of 5 teams, they're going to try to trade him to whatever NFC teams are on that list.
Exactly.
If the list is the Patriots, period, well, then yes, then they lose some leverage there. So, and again, I think I interpret it as the Patriots are one of the teams Lamar would want to play for.
Right.
If the Patriots get the same offer, if the Ravens get the same offer from the Patriots and like Seattle, they're going to trade him to Seattle because he's in the NFC and they don't have to deal with him.
100%. Yep.
So it depends on exactly like who comes knocking here, but I would assume they would rather trade him to an NFC team. I think they will have some flexibility in that. It is tough to say how much though.
You mentioned fully guaranteed contract. Do you believe he will get that fully guaranteed contract? There's been been back and forth with pseudo agents and him representing himself and all that. At the end of the day, I still think he's going to get a fully guaranteed deal. The length of it, the amount of salary on it, who knows? But I do think it'll end up being fully guaranteed.
He's going to get, in my mind, a heavily guaranteed contract.
Yeah.
Whether it's like full 100%, I don't know. Like, to me, interpreting kind of what he said, I think he's less interested in 100% guaranteed contract, and it's more he wants X amount of guaranteed dollars, right? He wants $250 million guaranteed. I think in his mind, like if there's $50 million in bonuses on top of that, all the better. But as long as it's $250 million guaranteed, like he's happy. So that's how I look at it. I don't know for sure. That's just kind of me reading the tea leaves, but and will he get that? I don't think so, but I think he will get very close. I think we're all going to be surprised just how close he got, because if he was willing to settle, I think he would have settled by now.
True. Let's close it out on this. This will be the last one. And I was thinking about this earlier, and I mean, it's true, right? Eventually you're going to have to pay Mac Jones. If he has a decent year this year, like Daniel Jones did. Daniel Jones just got, $40 million a pop or $30 million a pop? Something right around there. So, like, the comment is, if you're listening and not watching, people forgetting we eventually have to pay Mac Jones. Would you rather overpay for a top 5 to 7 QB in Lamar Jackson or overpay Mac. Overpay isn't the right word here because it's
all an overpay. It's not an overpay. It's market
exactly value. Right. Quarterbacks are getting paid, and that's market value, and that's just what you have to do in order to compete in the NFL. If you have a good quarterback, you either got to pay him a ton of money or you got to go back to the drawing board. So yeah, if Mac does have a good year this year, they're going to have to do his 5th-year option or eventually go extension and go that route. So would you rather overpay for Lamar Jackson or overpay Mac Jones? I still say Lamar. I think objectively he's a better quarterback. It's going to be a little bit more money, but you're going to have to pay Mac. That's just how it goes in this league, and so I would probably go Lamar over Mac.
Well, you pay the better player, but there is a third option here. And I know we just talked about it being a win or bust year, and Robert Kraft saying, it's very important the Patriots make the playoffs and what that maybe means for Bill's standing. Does Bill see it that way? Does he think he's head coach for life? Because the third option is you don't pay Mac and you dip into what's a much stronger quarterback class next year and reset the clock. Yeah. And Bill doesn't seem to be a very big fan of Mac. Does he just think, you know what? Give me another window on a rookie contract. And look, they blew this one, right? So can they manage another? Hopefully he manages the next one better if he gets another chance, which I don't think he would. But does he just sit there and say, there's been rumors that Bill doesn't like quarterbacks very much.
Yeah.
It's kind of been speculated. Does he just sit there and say, I'm just going to keep drafting them. I'm not paying any of these guys. I'm not spending money at this position. That's the other option as well here.
It's just that's bad business to not pay your quarterbacks. I'm sorry. It's the most important position on the field, and you got to do it. Having said that, I guess we'll see what happens, and we'll close it out with that because Lamar Jackson wants to be a Patriot, according to Meek Mill, according to Robert Kraft. So an very interesting storyline here as the Patriots offseason rolls on. That's our reaction to it. We're sticking to it for now. We will be back on Thursday to do a mock draft. We are sponsored by FanDuel. FanDuel is our new wagering partner here at CLNS Media and the new lead sponsor on the Patriots Beat Podcast. So if you want to get on the action, go to FanDuel.com/Boston for those $200 in bonus bets. All you got to do is deposit 10, bet 5. Super easy. Get on the action with us here at CLNS Media. Go to FanDuel.com/Boston. Again, reason we came on, a lot of breaking news, a lot of news out in Arizona at those owners' meetings. Bill didn't have much to say, but Robert Kraft certainly did, telling reporters out there that Lamar Jackson wants to be a Patriot. So we'll see where it goes. We'll see what happens. Again, we will be back on Thursday to do another mock draft. We're going to do them every Thursday going into the NFL draft at the end of April. So make sure you subscribe to Patriots Press Pass on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at RealAlexBarth and at Mike Kadlick. And read our stuff as this offseason rolls on. 98.5 The Sports Hub for Alex, CLNSmedia.com for myself. Again, turn on those notifications and join us on Thursday for our fourth mock draft of the offseason. And until then, thanks for watching.